Hello, everybody. Welcome back to All I Can Be. Uh, jump in. So let me explain jump in first before we go any further because I wanted to make sure that you all understand the concept of jump in. I think you can grasp all I can be, just being all you that you can be, regardless of where you're at, what situation you're in, and those type of things. But when we talk about jump in, remember when I told you when I joined the army that commercial that I watched that got me to join the army? You know, those was paratroopers jumping out of planes, and because it got me excited, that's why I joined the army. And so I joined the army to go to the 82nd Airborne Division. When the recruiter says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to do what those guys did on TV." He said, "You want to be airborne?" Airborne? I don't know. What is airborne? He said, "That's when the guys were jumping out of airplanes. They're paratroopers." I said, "Okay, sure. That's what I want to do then. I want to be airborne." So being airborne, you have to jump out of the plane. So I kind of made this, well, you say jump out of the plane, but then jump in to whatever situation you're going to, whether it's a combat zone or just a training or practice, deployment or whatever. But it's jumping into something. And I'm sure there's adrenaline going and excitement about it. So in this case where we had today for as, being retired or not working anymore, or even if you're working, you got older now. So I think we tend to start slowing down. Uh, this is where jump in comes into play. So instead of just slowing down, you're gonna jump into something else, jump into life, jump into taking care of yourself, jump into fitness, jump into taking spending time with your family or whatever it is. Just jump into it, and don't just slow drag your way into it and say, well, I guess I feel like be excited about it and just jump in. Okay. That's where jump in comes from. Okay. All right. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and go forward with the episode 2, which is, well, let me say this. In the introduction, I said the next episode was gonna be about fear of the unknown. Well, I felt like this episode should be one of the most important things that I talk about. And in this case, episode 2 is really pain management. No, it's not drugs. I'm not talking about drugs. I'm not talking about medication and all that stuff. Well, not yet anyway. But um, I don't do drugs as much as possible. But if I have to, I will. But it depends on what it is. Okay, but pain management. Um, After retirement, I like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I started to slow down from the pace because when you were in the army or whatever service that you was in, you just go 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 go. Whether it's getting up in the morning, go to PT, or you're going on a deployment, or you're going on some kind of training exercise, or you're deploying to a combat environment, jumping out of airplanes, or whatever it is. But you was always on the go. So when you retire and you stop doing all this, your body slows down. And one of the things I think that we as service members that was during the time we were serving, we would hear things about people when they retire and get out the military, a lot of them die. And we really, in for discussions that I had with people, we really didn't want that to happen to us. Okay, you go through all that time doing all that stuff and putting your life in danger just to get out and die from that. Okay, so when I got out, of course, that's on my mind. But I started having all kind of pain, aches and pains from everywhere, from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. Not that I wasn't having it while I was still serving, but it seemed like it had gotten so much worse that I was feeling pains I had never felt before. And some people want to credit to getting older, maybe, but this was weird. It was just not normal to me. I mean, I had, I guess you could say, brain pain, of pain on top of my head, just like a pulse on top of my head, sometimes the side of my head. Body was aching in different places and stuff. And it kind of struck me that I stopped doing the things that I was doing before that kept me fit and going and kept pushing and stuff. So um, I realized at that point I need to get back to doing what I was doing when I was in the army. Not as much, but I'm talking about things like physical fitness, um, for as eating healthy and taking care of yourself, as much as possible. So I think it mostly was that when you were like a non-commissioned officer or officer or something like that, you don't want to have your soldiers to look at you as being weak. So we had this mentality thing that we didn't want to go on sick call to be seen by a doctor because we had aches and pains here. So we buried through a lot of that stuff. So we would look like, I guess, that weak leader, which is far from the truth. That just because you go on sick call to get yourself taken care of doesn't mean you're weak. It just somehow we got embedded into thinking like that, and I didn't understand it. But at that time, that's I didn't want that to happen to me. So I went on sick call as less as possible. So we tried to be those tough leaders and stuff, and sometimes we dealt with things that we probably got should have got seen while we were still serving. And by the time you get out, and then you're looking at this pain again or something that's gotten worse. Now you got to struggle with it uh, in your retirement or in your time that you're not now that you're a veteran or just gotten older or whatever. Okay, so it just appears to me that doing stuff, being all that fast paced stuff, and then you just slow down, things just start to, as they say, break down. It's funny that you see a lot of comedians these days. They talk about age and getting older and aches and pains here and there and stuff. And it's the joke now. It's the comedian's joke. If you hear one talk about it, you're hearing another one talk about it, another one talk about it. It became like a trend that, you got to talk about, particularly if you're an older person, older comedian, then you're going to talk about aches and pains and stuff, the things that bother you and all that. And, you wake up one day, oh, or something like that. So it's real getting older. Um, but for people that served and you went through a lot of different things, that it's probably worse for you because you probably injured yourself and ignored it, or you probably a lot of people had some kind of uh, wound or something that they might have gotten in combat. So that's even worse for them. Okay, so I believe that the pain and stuff I was going through, that I was feeling, I felt like what's that? Gilda Ragnar, I think from old Saturday Night Show, something like that. I can't remember years ago. What she said. I thought I was gonna die. That's how I felt. I thought I'm gonna die because this is crazy. Why am I feeling all this? So, and like I said, that's when it kicked in to me that I need to get back to doing things. I need to stay more active, particularly with my body, and make sure I'm physically healthy and strong enough to manage my life through older age. So this is when I started back doing all this. So so to me, this is a part of pain management because I guarantee you, for me, I ain't gonna say it for everybody. For me, it helped a lot because when I started back to doing some kind of physical fitness, because I can only do so much of stuff because I have a lot of different injuries. Um, One is a back pain, which can pretty much stop you in your tracks on doing anything. So, because of those back injuries, you can't do the things that you would like to be able to do. So, you have to do a lot of things like sitting down, doing it, or whatever. So, you want to aggravate that back pain. So, these kind of things that I have to do and what I do. Um, um, so, I was really concerned why is this happening to me when it was happening? But I just pulled it all together and figured out, I need to get back to being active. Like I can't just sit around and do nothing. I mean, yeah, you can get a job and go to work that keeps your brain going and function like that. That's another thing. Make sure your brain is constantly being active. Um, I think a lot of people age faster when they just sit around and watch TV. Watch TV. I don't know what else they may do, but I only credit them with a older person that you probably see on TV that's grumpy and stuff, sitting around in a chair with a sweater on, watching TV and complaining about everything. And yeah, that wasn't gonna be me. I just couldn't do that. Okay. Um, so I do fitness despite my disabilities and stuff. So that's what I do. And that's part of my pain management portion. Okay. So I have programs that I have. One is an eating program, one is a fitness program. The fitness, like I said, I do what I can possibly do with my back pain, my um, wound I have in my right leg. I'll tell you about that here at the end of this. It's a story about what happened to me. Um, but I have that right leg that I can't use as much because it's probably a little bit longer than my left leg because of what happened. I'll tell you that. Like I said, I'll tell you that shortly. Um, so I have to do fitness, weight training, as well as cardio, like sitting on or riding a bike, like sitting on a bike and such, and those kind of things, just to make sure I stay fit. I gained for about 20, 30 pounds that I got out there, the Army. Um, but I'm happy to say nowadays that it's 90% muscle versus fat or whatever else. So I think that that's good for me. And so, but I also believe that when you get older, the older you get, the heavier you are, the worse things are for you as your health goes, and it's harder for you to walk and get around and stuff. So uh, you might want to try to lighten up weight wise as you get older. Um, Also, your muscle tissue start to deteriorate too. So you got to keep feeding them something like protein and making sure they get all the nutrients they need and water and stuff. So, but that's some other stuff I'm gonna talk about. The next episode is gonna be about concoctions because I think that's the next important thing to me to talk about other than the fear of the unknown. So we're going to talk about concoctions. I just call them concoctions. It's something I got from old term stuff. I think it still exists. I don't know, but it's just stuff I put together to make sure that I eat and drink the right things to help me with my pain and keep my body healthy, to keep my muscles healthy, and to also things for your brain to keep my brain healthy and going. Okay. So those things I do for as fitness goals, just keep working out. You know, I'm not saying you got to be try to be Lee Haney or Arnold Schwarzenegger or nobody like that. It's just trying to make sure your body's fit. And I think I saw it as a phase that it seemed maybe not a phase, maybe you could call it a trend or something that a lot of older guys started to get into bodybuilding, not competing or nothing like that. I'm sure that's something that does, but they started getting into that bodybuilding phase where they started trying to bodybuild, trying to make their muscles bigger and stronger and stuff like that. So they start working out harder, and you can, as long as you don't know your limits and not try to hurt yourself. But sometimes you got to push past those limits if you want to gain that muscle tissue. But just be careful not to hurt yourself, not too fast, uh, too much too fast. That can hurt you. Um, then there's an eating perspective other than the fitness. What you eat can make you healthy or make you sick. When I say sick, I mean make your body not strong enough to uh, withstand things, your immune system, break your immune system down, whatever. But if you gain fat versus muscle, and you just causing your body more problems. Okay. Um, I think a lot of times that when we eat certain things, like me, for instance, I love to eat the sweet things. That's just who I am. I love sweets. And I always tell my wife, don't bring no sweets in the house. Because if you do, I'm just going to eat them. It's like a crack, you know. Sweet and sweet sugar. Sugar don't really agree with me, stomach wise or um, gaining fat wise, based off of carbs turning to fat. Um, they don't. It doesn't agree with me, but I think I'm just addicted to sugar. Things that are sweet. I love sweet stuff, and I guess that's my crack. So the less I have in the house, the less I would eat of it. So I had to be very strong not to eat those type things. But those kind of things, and let's talk about things that can be healthy for you. Okay, let's say you eat the meats, different kinds of meats. Be careful of red meat. Red meat is not as good for you as, I mean, I eat it sparingly, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. But that's kind of how I deal with red meat. But I try to eat, stay away from the red meat stuff and just eat fish and chicken. Mostly fish and chicken. Red meats every now and then. Mostly it's probably beef. But other than that, it's, you know. But I told you I'm a cook. Did I tell you? I don't remember if I told you, but I'm I could use the term chef, but it may not be right. But I like to cook. I like to do different recipes to come up with different things just to get a different taste or flavor out of it. Though I know I have to be careful what I'm actually count the type of food that I'm making because it may be not good for you. So I am aware of that and mindful of that. But I'm a chef. I like to sometimes tell my wife, if I ask you something and it's yes or no, just say, particularly doing the cooking, uh, just say yes, chef, or no, chef. She won't do it no way. So that's exactly to do it. But I enjoy cooking, and I definitely have to eat right now. My meals consist of breakfast, and people call things breakfast, but I don't know if that's, everybody got a name. You got a name for breakfast, lunch, dinner, but it's a meal. And I think some people get kind of twisted when you eat like breakfast food. Um, is considered as breakfast food. If you eat it during lunch or dinner or something, some people get a little twisted about it. But yeah, that's breakfast. Why are you eating breakfast? No, it's not. It's just food. So, um, yeah, I partake in eggs. Eggs are healthy, good source of protein. So I eat eggs every morning. Um, 2 eggs. Sometimes just one egg with a yolk, and the other two or three eggs I might eat is just the white portion of the eggs. So um, fat-free cheese, chicken, fish. Fish includes stuff like salmon and tuna and trout. That's about three kind of only three kind of fish I really eat. Tuna you have to be careful with because it has more mercury. Because in mercury, if I understand it correctly, I think you can get some kind of poisoning from mercury, a brain poison. So I don't know all of that, but bottom line is I know I can't eat a lot of large fish type fish because it has more mercury in it. So the tuna that I eat, turkey is good sauce, and shrimp, those type things I eat. Those are healthy things to eat. Uh, the salmon has more of the omega-3 fatty acids that are good for your brain as well, and the fish it's one of the, I think salmon is one of the healthiest fish you can actually eat. Um, and not to go too deep into all the different foods and stuff and what they have and contents of them and stuff such like that. But I also take in 150 grams of protein a day. That is my target amount. I might go over that, but I try not to be under that. That's how I try to keep my muscle tissues from deteriorating as well as working out and make sure that I don't become, how you see when people get older, their skin is just like it's just hanging because they don't have any muscle tissue there because they didn't keep it going because it deteriorates as you get older. So um, one of the things that help your muscles out is creatine. Creatine is supposed to have a lot of different benefits. Do some research and Google it. You'll see what it has. It's not a steroid, or some people think something like that, but it's just a powder. Your body already produces it. You're just giving it more. What it does is just let you up. The main thing I think a lot of people use it for is because their muscles. It causes the muscles to retain water, so the muscles gets bigger because they're retaining water. Versus uh, the less creatine you have um, in your muscles, the less water that it would retain. So standard recommendation is 5 grams a day, and that's just a one of the scoop when you get a container. But in some workouts, people trying to get these huge muscles and stuff, they tend to use like 3 or 4 a day, three or four, 5 grams a day. But your body can only absorb 5 grams at one time, so it's probably you probably take it. You're trying to get huge or whatever, then you probably take it like maybe 3 or 4 times, different times in a day. Give your body time to absorb the water and such. So I drink 4 to 5 bottles of water a day. Got to keep my body hydrated, but I mean that's just like me. I drink like a fish because I mean I've always have. No, no, no. I haven't always have, but at some point in my life I started drinking a lot of water and I haven't stopped. So and the creatine helps out with help with the muscles and retaining the water and such. Okay. Um, Natural things such as ginger, which boosts the immune system, turmeric, which helps joint pain, tea, some kind of tea, garlic, red onions, apple cider vinegar, things like that. We're going to talk about that in the concoctions, but those are the things I ingest daily to make sure my body stays healthy enough to get going. Um, I tell you what, I used to be a runner. I used to max my PT test all the time. I go into the extended scale. People who don't know what that is, the max you can get on a PT test is 300 points. I mean, you done maxed out every event. And then if you go over those 300 points, then you go into what they call the extended scale. I was always going into the extended scale, particularly my last probably 10 years of my career. I was going into the extended scales because I just felt like I just always wanted to do my best all the way up and not just get the 300 max. Okay, my max, that's it. It wasn't to gain anything other than just self pride that I could do it. That was pretty much it. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it um, for the things that I actually do to stay healthy and everything. But I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to be kind of quick. Was what I mentioned earlier about my right leg. Okay. Story goes, I was in an MP unit stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. They're going to tell you what the unit are right at this moment. I don't know if I tell you, but I was in an MP unit at Fort Lewis, Washington. We deployed down to Panama. This is before they had the invasion down there, but the 82nd jumped in there. I wish I had been there in the 82nd at that time, jumping. But I was already down there with the MP battalion. Um, Enjoyed the heck out of it, be honest with you. I didn't know if I was crazy or what, but I was enjoying the heck out of it. They asked for volunteers. They go with the intel guy to be an observant. I said, okay, that's me. I'll do it. I went with him. He was standing down there with these guys, and they had guns pointing at us, walking about 5 feet from us with guns locked and loaded. A guy pointed anti-personnel carrier had a big gun on it, pointed at us, and um, it was adrenaline rush for me, I guess. And it was a major who was the intel guy. He was standing there and looking. I don't know he had a binoculars. I don't know what he was looking at with those binoculars, but I was standing there as his, I guess you could say, bodyguard in some form. But and they pointed that APC at us, that big barrel gun with a round. I guess they had a round. I don't know if that thing was loaded or not. I mean, that day wasn't very well equipped in a way. So, but this was I think it was called PDF Forces, the Panama Defense Forces or something like that. This is the time when Norway got, I don't know if anybody remembers all that. But anyway, we were standing down and the guy pointed APC at us. And I told the intel guy, I said, hey, you know, they pointed at APC. And he said, yeah, I see. And he said it real smooth and cool, like, you know, I ain't afraid of them or something like that. I said, okay. So after we got done doing our observation down there, we came back to the headquarters, you know, hung out in there, and you know, of course, they asked for people to volunteer to guard the headquarters, and of course, being the gung ho type person I was, yeah, I'll do it, and I did. You know, I was a sergeant at that time, but I said I'll do it, and I stayed there with another guy, with just two of us, I think, that was guarding the headquarters. And then so while we were there, the leadership element came back, because I'm trying not to say their name, but it came back, cleared their weapon inside the building instead of outside, because he had a weapon in, he had a round in a chamber, cleared his weapon, it went off when I was just happened to be going up there to check the front door, make sure it was secure, and the round went off. And because he wasn't supposed to clear his weapon indoors, but he did. The round went off, caught me in my right leg while I was stepping, shattered the bones in between them. So I had to go to the hospital and get the bones I guess it put back together. I had pins in my leg and stuff. So that's why this leg is a little bit longer than the other one. And that's why I probably always have a problem with this leg, whether it's dealing with the hip, the back, or the ankle and such. But um, yeah, that's how I ended up getting shot down in Panama. And, you know, still have to deal with those pain injuries now. But here's the catcher behind all that. I ran into some people, or at least one person in the battle staff uh, at Fort. So I can't remember Fort, whatever they call it, on top of my head. But in El Paso. But I ran into this Fort Bliss. It was Fort Bliss. Ran into this person. She said, and we talked about that. And she said, "Do you know that if anybody they put out the word, the command put out the word, if anybody asks what happened to Sergeant Abney, tell tell them he shot himself." Oh, I was livid. Man, if I could have bit somebody's head off at that time, I would have done it. But I, at my one of my commanders did a line of duty on that stuff, and you know there was nobody a lot of people around to even attest to all that. But it's in my medical records. But it's just the fact that they would say I shot myself. And I think it bothers me more that people didn't nobody told me that they said that. So anyway, that was my Panama experiences. With that, but it's all my spirit. I got some other ones there. And maybe that bullet slowed me down because I was doing some crazy stuff. I ain't gonna tell you about it. No. Anyway, anyway, thank you guys for joining in and listening to the podcast today, and whatever day you're listening to it. I hope you come back and want to hear more stories or whatever. But um, take care of yourselves out there. Be safe. Uh, talk to you later. Airborne.